Hi, this is Martin from martinmixing.com, where we do mixing, mastering and magic. In today's video I want to do something a bit different. Today I want to give you an insight into a mixer's head. I want to show you what goes on in my mind when I first hear the rough mix of a song that I have to work on. So what are my initial thoughts? What goes on in my mind? This and more in today's video. Let's do it. My first impressions are my most treasured asset when it comes to mixing. I really have to rely on these initial thoughts, on these first impressions, because everything I do later in the mix is based around these first thoughts. To show you some of my thinking, I have asked my community to send me some of their rough mixes that I'll show you in this video today. I have loaded 3 of these songs into Logic and I'll give them a listen in today's video. I have never heard these songs before, so the rest of this video will be completely unscripted and completely raw. I'll also keep editing to a minimum as well. So with that, let's jump right into Logic. So as you can see, we have 3 songs here. They're a little bit different in volume, so I've used the metering with the speakers muted, of course, to adjust for the levels a little bit. And with that, I would say let's start right away with song number 1.
So close when I close my eyes, so I burned the map, I ignored the signs.
Cool, so right away I can hear that this is a really good production. I really like the recording quality. I really like the vocal effect. It's a very particular effect, so this is something very important to preserve in the mix. I don't know how the artist would send me the tracks, hopefully with this effect on. If not, I'll probably ask them to just send me the vocals with this effect, because I can tell that they worked on this a lot. It's a very particular sound, so I want to preserve it. Second thing I notice is that the mix is, as usually, very dark. There has to be a lot of treble that needs to be boosted, probably across the whole mix. The guitars are very dark, but there's some really beautiful low end going on. You can hear some bass guitar runs. I really like that. I would like to emphasize that in the mix later on.
2 years in a couple of days, just wave my hand to the world outside.
The rough mix is already really wide. I really like that. There's some guitar parts flying around, so this is something that I would not only preserve but also emphasize.
Like it's all okay. I can't believe what my eyes have seen. I just woke up from a broken dream.
Okay, so in this pre-chorus part, we want to have a lift, but it's not quite happening yet, which is completely normal at this stage. So here I will have to do something to make this part seem bigger, louder, wider, whatever, just to give an emotional lift at this part of the song. When the singer shifts into a higher register, I hear that the voice becomes a bit harsh. So I'll have to do something about this. I'll most likely mold the vocals. I put the chorus or the pre-chorus vocal onto a separate track and EQ it a little bit differently. Maybe use a dynamic EQ to fix this harshness that I hear on 3/4K.
I need you to take them, and I don't wanna wait all night. I'm coming alive in my senses, a little demented, lost.
Okay, so here we have an interesting transition. I don't actually know what's the pre-chorus or what's the chorus anymore. So let me just go back a little bit.
Dream. Just wave my hand to the world outside like it's all okay. I can't believe what my eyes have seen. I just woke up from a broken dream. Ooh, can't stop my hands from shaking. I need you to take them, and I don't wanna wait all night. I'm coming alive in my senses, a little demented.
Okay, I think in this section we are meant to have yet another lift. We can hear that the drums are changing up a little bit to a half beat. It's not quite audible, so we want to emphasize that to give this section a bit of a different vibe, to really, bring this energy out.
Lost my sight.
Vocals are not perfectly in tune, but I like it. It's cool. I think here it's cool. This we want to have really atmospheric. Just really open it up and create a nice soundscape. Get lost in the audio. It's a really upbeat, it's a really happy song, but it has some darkness. It has a really retro vibe to it, which I think is really important to preserve. So I don't want to over-polish this. I don't want perfect separation in this mix. I don't want perfection in this mix at all later, I would say. We want to tell a story. It feels a lot like laying in the grass on a sunny day. That's the kind of vibe I'm getting from this song. But you know, there is a grittiness to it that you can hear in the bass and some of the guitars, and especially the voice as well, you know. So there's a good contrast that can be created in this mix, in my opinion. Contrast is cool. I love contrast. Always contrast. I quite dig the lo-fi drum tone actually. It's not, you know, it's not a perfect polished drum tone, but it's really, really cool. It's very lo-fi. I don't know if it's distorting or it's distorting on purpose or if it's just some bleed, but it's really cool. Something to preserve, maybe even emphasize. This is like a perfect progression. I really like the dynamics here. We had a big breakdown after the chorus, really sparse. We can make it really big and spacious, kind of getting lost in the sound, and then slowly bring in the more direct elements with the drums and the vocals. So I would create something quite reverberant, I think, in this section here. And then here bring in really dry elements. So we have this massive space and then something really concrete and focused coming at you in the middle. It's like when you're, you know, laying in the field and then someone comes up to you or starts talking to you, kind of taking you out of this dreamy state.
I can't trust my sight. I'm sick of being so tired, and I can't keep avoiding the cure. It feels like my heart's gonna die if I don't run out this door. I can't believe what my eyes have seen. I was stuck in a broken dream. Who can stop my hands from shaking? I need you to take that. I'm burning down the house tonight. Coming alive in my senses, all a bit demented. I saw the light.
Yeah, really cool dynamics, really cool progression. It's just a matter of emphasizing it, bringing it up. As you can see, I switched speakers for a moment. I don't know if you see it in the video. I have my Neumann KH310s, which I really love, and my Yamaha NS10s. They complement each other really well. The Yamaha's, of course, a lot of mid-range. Neumann's a lot bigger, but still a very good mid-range detail. On the Yamahas, I hear that, you know, the mid-range is a little bit too crowded, a little bit too unclear, so you definitely want to do a bit of separation there. Also very interesting, Yamahas should have decent bass, but there isn't any bass actually right now on the Yamahas, which means I'll have to work a lot on this 100 Hertz punchy range to, you know, to make the mix thicker on smaller speakers as well, which is really important. This is just a technical thing, of course. The kick is practically completely gone on my Yamahas. Cool little guitar solo thing. This I would have to bring up because right now I don't know what to focus on. I know instinctively I think what the artist wants me to focus on, I think, is this guitar solo that's a bit on the off-right. But you know, we don't all... We need to be guided as a listener. We have to be told, like, look, this is now what's happening. This is the guitar solo. Listen to it, okay? So I would bring it up a little bit, make it a bit louder. I would keep the drums probably super dry and the rest quite dreamy. Again, contrast is really cool. So this section, this is very interesting. This either has to be super small or really quite powerful. Right now it's in between, it doesn't work, there's no flow. So we can either really collapse this part in the mix or make it a lot more energetic by pumping up those guitars and bringing the vocals really up front. But right now, the flow just doesn't work for me. I might maybe even make this section completely mono if I was mixing this song. Yeah, definitely make that guitar a bit more powerful. It's a bit thin, you know, these guitars are quite thin, so there needs to be some work done. Yeah, pump up that drum fill and then make this section, boom, just really hit you in the face. I mean, gently, it's still a dreamy atmosphere, but you know, we need emotion, we need some progression happen here. At the same time, and this is not often mentioned, it's a really cool technique when there's something really obvious that the listener expects, and then not give it to the listener. That's really cool way. That's a really cool way to build up tension as well. Yeah, this is something that we can maybe use in this mix. Yeah, so then we kind of beautifully tail out in the end. Sounds really cool to me. It's a very natural ending to the song. We can make the ending guitar solo nice and spacious again to give this kind of same vibe as here. But otherwise, it's a really good production. I find the recording quality seems good. I can tell that there's a lot of purpose to it. There's a lot of artistry in this, which is obvious based on the drum sound, the vocal sound, the guitar sounds. I can hear that there's a lot of work that went into it, a lot of consideration. So my approach to this mix is, apart from everything else that I've already said, is to, one, not mess it up. Do as little as I have to do, but as much as necessary. You know, this is always like a golden balance. That's my approach to mixing. Do as little as you have to do, but as much as necessary to make the mix work, the song work as a whole, rather. Yeah, I really dig this. I really dig this. I don't think I have anything else for this song. So let's move on to song number 2. Okay, completely different genre, completely different vibe. Yeah, couldn't be any more different. But what I noticed in the beginning already is, the beginning is very mono. And my initial instinct was, why not make it wider? But then the second instrument came in and I thought, oh, actually that's why, because there's another instrument coming in later to add that width. And as I, say all the time, progression is really important, dynamics are really important to me, contrast is really important to me. So I'll probably preserve this really mono vibe in the beginning, but make that second or third instrument that comes in really wide. So we go from a narrow kind of path and open up into a big hallway or a big field. Yeah, this kind of guitar-y, paddy thing in the background, I would make that super wide, super big. I really like the dryness of the drums. Now here I don't know what happened. So I was expecting a lift, or we should be expecting a lift, but it doesn't quite happen. Yet there's a really powerful instrument coming in. So I would pump that up. I would really bring that instrument up, reduce the reverb, maybe even completely remove the reverb. I don't know what state I would receive the stems in, you know, but I would ask the artist for a dry version of that stem, that kind of bassy, brahmy, guitar-y kind of thing. Okay, so this was half a minute or something where really nothing happened. Although there is potential for stuff to be going on, so I would probably have to resort to a lot of automation here, make maybe this a bleepy sound. Come and go while the other instrument can go in the opposite direction, so this out a little bit, the other one up a little bit more. We need to create movement, so you cannot have 30 seconds of staticness, you know. It works in like a hardcore techno club maybe when everything is on drugs, but here we have to tell a story. I mean, here we clearly have a breakdown, so here I would probably collapse the stereo image a little bit more. Maybe use some filter automation for a swooshy, swoopy effect. You know, just to create some movement. Yeah, this I quite like, so this can be made really big, but I think that there's too much reverb on most of the instruments. There is we have the drums here and then everything else really far. We need a bit more stuff from a bit more 3D kind of positioning in this mix. So there seems to be a lead instrument coming in, but it's not leading the mix. So this might be one of the cases where I ring up the producer, what was your intention with this element? You know, where is it meant to be? What is it meant to do? Or maybe you can leave me to decide, what to do with it. Yet another instrument coming in, also very much in the background, also very much not giving me the lift I'm expecting. But this can be sorted, you know, this is all doable. Yeah, it's cool. I mean, sound design wise, it's really cool. There's a lot that can be done, but right now it's just not really happening yet. So I think this is more a game of automation, a bit more playing with reverb, mostly less reverb in on many of the instruments. EQ-wise, I mean, I don't hear anything wrong. I would make it a bit bigger, just, you know, to impress the artist. There's room for adding a bit more bass, cleaning up a bit of the mids, and maybe a bit more treble, like beautiful shiny treble. Also, somehow it reminds me of older electronic music like Cosmic Gate from way back, so I might find a way to sneak a little bit of that vibe into this as well. Because the ear is always drawn to familiar, or us as people in general, so when we hear familiar things, we will relate to it more easily, you know, whether it's in music or painting or TV or whatever it is. Familiar things will always attract us in something else. So that could be achieved with a certain type of reverb, a certain way of EQing one of these instruments maybe. Yeah, otherwise this is pretty cool. I have just restarted my camera, so I don't run out of recording time, but this is not an edit. Let's do song number 3. Bit of Elton John vibe going on here, I dig it. Very beautiful, really like it. Of course, vocal way too quiet, way too dark, way too much reverb on everything, way too much mud in the lows. I know the artist, I know this is a real piano recording and also the drums are real, everything is real actually. Which also means that a lot of EQing will have to go into it. So with pianos, 99.9% of the times the recording, if it's a real recording, will be too dark and too muddy. It's just the nature of things, you know, the piano in a room, a lot of highs will roll off relative to when you're sitting next to it. Microphones also will not capture enough highs. And as you go on, you know, and with the whole pop sound and the mainstream sound we have today, a lot of treble will have to go into this. Drums are very distant and a bit too roomy for my taste. I love roomy drums, but in this song I would probably have something a little bit darker. When you listen to Robbie Williams' feel, I really like that vibe, that kind of large jazz big band. We could probably sneak some of that into here with maybe some Elton John-esque piano, but with really upfront vocals. I know the artist, again, like he really likes reverb on his vocals, so that's something we have to do. So I will have to find a way to add a lot of reverb while still keeping the vocal upfront. Pre-delay maybe? There's a really cool guitar on the off left. It's barely audible now, but it gives a really cool groove, it's a really cool sound, so that will have to come up a lot. Boy, I love it. This is really cool. I mean, production-wise, this is spot on. Like, everything is there. It's a very raw recording, but the intentions are very clearly stated in this rough mix already. We know exactly what we have to do when mixing this song. I mean, this chorus just has to explode. It has to become big. The piano has to open up. The drums have to become a bit bigger. And it happens in the playing as well, you know. We have only the kick here, and then we add tom fill with the kick, hi-hat, snare, so already there's a big progression, so we can make this bigger still. We have a low octave on the vocal. Let's see where that fits in. I love this section. So here I would maybe keep the vocal a little bit drier, but then on this sustained section, really make the vocal disappear in space. Maybe adding some floating echoes, a bit more reverb to it, something like that. I mean, this is groovy as hell. It's not mixed, but I'm already moving along with it, which is really good. This is a very good sign. Again, really great production element. Second verse is bigger than the first verse. We have a little bit of a bluesy lead guitar coming in. Way too much reverb again, but that seems to be a repeating pattern with this artist. Love the strings coming in. I mean, again, it's barely audible in the mix right now, but this is something important we have to emphasize. Little thing, the mix is a bit right heavy. Hi-hat, lead guitar, cello, all on the right. So I would probably move some things over to the left. I mean, usually when there's a hi-hat on the right, I'll have some other lead element on the left just to give that balance in the treble. In this instance, I'll definitely move the lead guitar over to the left to balance the hi-hat on the right. Yeah, the guitar has no business being there. That has to move over to the left. Even if you look at the meters in Logic, it's very, very much right heavy, actually. Okay, we have a little bit of a Coldplay moment going on here, really cool. So this is clearly piano driven, and I think now guitar is coming in. Yeah, it's really quiet. I would automate it to, give it a slope up so it starts quiet and becomes louder. So this can be really, really dynamic here. Multiple vocals, but they're not exactly lead vocals here, are they? So I would probably make them quite wide and a bit more lost in space in this section. And then maybe in the second half of this part, designate one of them as lead vocal. Let's just see what happens. Yeah, so that key, I would make that central and bring it out really loud to make the transition into the last chorus. We also switch over to the ride, which is again a really cool production element. It will make everything feel a little bit different. It's a good sign of progress, or a good way to create progression. Just by switching to the ride, we have created a lot more flowy, a more flowing last chorus actually. It's a more atmospheric compared to the previous choruses, which are a bit more upbeat. Yeah, what more do you want? I mean, it's perfectly progressing. There's a lot of dynamics that can be worked with already. It's 3 minutes 17 long. I mean, it couldn't be any better, really. The recording is really, really good. I can hear that the piano is very, very good. The guitars, the vocal is very good. Bass, I can actually hear the bass too much. Okay, I need that 3.5 minutes to realize that I don't actually hear a bass guitar. Yeah, okay, that's something we will have to fix. I mean, in some music, in some songs, the bass guitar is more there just to fill up that lowest octave, lowest 2 octaves. It doesn't necessarily have to be heard. And I also think that here, because the piano is such a big and such a leading instrument, we might just mix this in a way where the piano is doing, the low mids and the mid-range, and the bass just really filling up that bottom 1 or 2 octaves. But that said, it's a bit skinny in the bass, in the lows. And I mean, obviously there's the tonal things, like there's way too much mid-range, between 300 to 500 hertz right now. There's a lot of EQing that has to be done. But as you go through the instruments here and clean up the things here and there, you know, this will happen very organically, that it cleans up. It will happen very naturally. So yeah, first I'll definitely do some technical EQing on most of the tracks, just to see what happens when I clean them up, and then do the final tone shaping as necessary. Keeping things to minimum, of course. I think this mix is more a game of automation again, as well as some good EQing and some good, you know, layering from top to bottom. Yeah, and I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's a very heartfelt pop song still. So the vocal still has to lead. I know the artist is an extremely good pianist, so the main instruments here are, of course, the lead vocal and the piano. Yeah, so you have to place everything else around that. Do I have anything else? No, I think this is it for this song, really. Yeah, so, so this sums up my video for today. I hope it was helpful to you guys. I hope you gained some insight of what your mixer will most likely be thinking, what kind of questions he or she will be asking himself when receiving your rough mixes. And, you know, hopefully they'll have a similar approach to mixing to what you have in mind as well. I mean, you know, you have to find your mixer, you have to find a person who you are comfortable working with, that you're on the same wavelength, to make the best out of your music. This is a collaboration after all, and the good mixer should always focus on what is best for the song and not just follow some recipe that they do for every mix. I mean, there are recipe mixers out there and they are really successful and people know what kind of songs to send to them. But you know, everyone else that is not a recipe mixer, they really have to respect the music and do the best they can to make it sound best and also feel best, most importantly, feel best. If you like this video, please feel free to follow me on YouTube, it's Mixing with Martin. Also, please feel free to join my private group on Facebook, also called Mixing with Martin, where I have more exclusive content and also weekly Q&As. I'll be seeing you in the next video. Until then, happy mixing, take it easy, bye bye.